Hey guys, I'm Carrie Manigmouche. I'm a brand and web designer living out my dream as a creative entrepreneur. My path to success hasn't been easy and I'm still a constant work in progress. But I'm here to shine a light on the challenges and wins we all face and share everything I've learned along the way and everything I'm still learning. This includes actionable tips and mindset shifts that you need to make to have a life and a business that fulfills you. Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. Today I have with me my good friend Mackenzie, who is an incredible copywriter who focuses on copy that converts. And we're going to talk all about creating a unique brand voice. So Mackenzie, thank you so much for joining me. I would love for you to tell everyone all about your story and how you got started and just who you are.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Second of all, you have such a good, I don't know if we've ever talked on the phone or just via DMs and voice messages, but you have a very sexual, perfect radio host voice, and I'm here for it.
I think it's the broadcast journalism past. People are always telling me, you should be a meteorologist. I just want to hear you talk. I'm like, well, that's the best thing ever, because as we all do, I hate my voice. I won't even re-listen to podcast episodes, so thank you for saying that.
No, I would put you on in the background, falling to sleep. I love it. Perfect.
I love it.
But so I am a copywriter for coaches and a messaging coach. I started in the corporate world. So straight out of school, I got my degree in professional and technical writing, went to a Fortune 500 where I was a copywriter for several years. I was such a nerd herd that I would go home every day and I would be like, all right, let me keep writing. That wasn't enough for me. That didn't satisfy me. So I would go home and get on Upwork, and freelance and all of the things, and just kind of was trying to find my way a little bit online, and finally got into the business to business technology niche, specifically working with a lot of artificial intelligence companies, which is so freaking weird to say. And then I just kept attracting online coaches, and I'm like, this is weird. These aren't the people I'm looking for. And then realized, wait, these are the people that I like working with. So why am I doing work with a bunch of old white rich men when I could be working with some cool coaches? So transitioned. Now I've been doing this in the specific niche for 2 or 3 years. I don't even know, but and eventually started adding some brand messaging coaching into it. So doing all of the things, and I'm obsessed.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that's just a really good way to remind people too, if anyone is listening and at that place where they're still in the Upwork or Fiverr days, because I went through that same stage too. And I think so many people do, is that, it's kind of just part of the process. It can be a stepping stone. And like you said, whoever you decide to work with when you start in the industries that you might be in, don't necessarily mean that that's the end game, because I was the same way. When I created my business, I was I just want to work with restaurants and cocktail bars. And then I slowly started to realize that a lot of those places don't have the overhead to hire an actual designer. And those are the people who are going on Fiverr and Upwork a lot of times and getting just really, quick logos because they have so many other costs. And I mean, of course, there are always some people who are no, we want to hire a designer, do it all this way. But the majority was in that kind of mindset. And so I think it's really good and just permission giving to be you can find new people that you like working with, and you might not know until you work with them. And that's okay to change and transition as you grow,
100%. I had one of my coaching clients come to me the other day and she's like, is it embarrassing that I've kind of been bopping around? And I'm like, no, how are you supposed to know who you enjoy working with and who you don't, and where you want to be? If it would just be worse in the long run if you didn't do this and you wound up years down the road, oh, wait, I didn't try anything. Now I'm realizing this is not the right niche for me.
Yeah. I always tell people it's marrying the first person you ever go on a date with.
Oh, that's good.
Whenever I talk to designers and everything that I'm coaching, I'm you literally can't just work with one type of person or one industry and be okay, this is it forever. You have to explore to know what do you like? What do you not like? So I love that you allow that for everyone you work with too, because I think it's just, we hear, and I mean, obviously it's important, once you're at a certain stage in your business to have a niche and know who you're talking to and all of that. But I also think that like, you have to kind of like, work with different people and actually find out who you like working with.
100%. Yeah.
So I want to talk about just kind of defining a brand voice. And so just for anyone who, I feel like brand voice and anything about branding that's not just like tangible things like visual identities is sometimes hard for people to even just like grasp the meaning of. So tell me, as like a step one, like how do you define what a brand voice even is and like why does that matter?
Yes, and you're so correct. And people are always like, I feel like branding and brand identity and brand this and brand that is like such a hot topic, and just like it sounds fun and it sounds like, oh, I want to do that. Like I want to find my brand, but it's like, what the fuck is a brand voice?
Right.
But I define it as the personality that runs through your communications and your messaging, basically the words you use and how you use them. It's what allows you to stand out from the masses online and what allows you to develop real, strong, lifelong connections with your perfect people and just allow your audience to gain a real understanding, like who is this person behind what they're selling type thing.
Yes. And I think that's such a good way to, break it down in a way that's digestible, because just like you said, we hear so many like abstract things around branding that people are like, this is your brand, this is your brand.
Right.
And then people are like, oh, your logo's your brand. And I always tell people like your logo is the tiniest piece of a pie. Like your brand is, like obviously your brand voice and how you write your captions and your copy and the photos that you have and like the colors that you use and the emotions that you evoke and like how you show up in the world. Like it's so much more than just a logo. That is just literally the cherry on top. Like that's something to wrap everything up and like show like, hey, here's a symbol that kind of reflects all of this. But like a logo at the end of the day is nothing. Like when we think of brands we love and businesses we love, like we might think for a second about the logo, but we love them for other reasons, obviously. Like we don't look at, I always use Trader Joe's as an example. I don't know if you've ever been to Trader Joe's, but
oh, fuck yeah, I've been to Trader Joe's.
Right, dude. I'm like, they've created such a good brand. And it's because like, you never are just like, oh my gosh, my experience at Trader Joe's, the logo. You're like, no, the way that there are, handwritten notes everywhere you go telling you like what goes with what and that everyone's always nice. And even the credit card machine sings a little dingle when you put your card in. Like all of those things make up this experience that you're having with their brand. That's so much more than a logo,
Yeah. And it's like, while you may think Trader Joe's and like the logo pops into your head, like visually, what you're like, at least for me, what I start to think and like feel and experience like in my brain and inside is like all the feelings that when I go there and I get excited, like I call it like Disney World for adults because it is like, I want to buy a plant. Yes, I'm going to Trader Joe's. Yes. Oh my God, I need some organic shit. Take me there. Like it gets all the feels for me going. So while you think of a logo, you like feel so much more.
I love that you're equally as passionate about Trader Joe's as me. I was like, I wonder if she has ever been there, because I think that they really have just done the perfect, I don't know, they've branded themselves so well. Like even the fact everyone's wearing Hawaiian shirts and like you said, there are plants and it's like fun and it's enjoyable and you feel like you can trust them. And yeah, I love that you feel the same way. I literally talk about them in like all of my brand presentations. So going off of that. So all right, talking about like your brand voice and everything, I think so many people struggle with this, like even people who have been in like the online or entrepreneur space for a while, because they feel like they should sound or be a certain way, like, oh, like I shouldn't cuss or, oh, I shouldn't, say this, or like kind of hiding just these parts of themselves who are actually who they are and things that could, have other people get connected to them. But what would you just kind of like recommend, or what are some tips that just allow people to really stay genuine and true to who they are in a way that like, still attracts their people and still converts, but doesn't feel just so polished and fake because they feel like they should be doing that?
Yeah. So, and I think a big thing that all of us, I mean, mainly us who came from corporate and like started a business is like corporate. I came up with this term like earlier this morning and I'm like, this is so funny to me and nobody's going to think it's funny, but like corporate incog lingo, like you're trying to hide behind this corporate speak because you're not quite ready to like dive into your own brand voice yet. And a lot of people are like, I don't know, I was the same way when I got online. I was speaking in the same way I was at corporate and I'm using all the correct terms and punctuation where it's supposed to go. And I'm definitely not starting any sentences with and or but now I'm like, fuck that. Like, I'm going to write how I speak. That's how I sound. And that's what attracts my perfect people. Like, what I would say for somebody who, because it's so easy to be like, write in your genuine brand voice, write how you speak. But it's like, well, how do you do that when you're so close to your brand and you're so close to like how you're speaking every day? It's hard to kind of like zoom out a little bit. And one of my biggest tips, my favorite things to tell people is to go and look at your text messages, your DMs, your whatever it is, however you're talking to friends, and just skim through, conversations. What are those words that keep appearing, those phrases? How do you talk with friends? And then making just a few little notes and starting to incorporate those into your brand voice. It doesn't have to be something where you're like, okay, I need my brand voice set and ready to rumble by tomorrow. I am going to full throttle, like just flip this shit on over. But like, it's just slowly starting to integrate who you are and making it more comfortable for you and making it more comfortable for your audience to see who's behind that brand. That makes worlds of difference.
Yes. And one thing I did, and I don't know why I got this idea. I think I was just like driving one day and had a really good just idea for a caption in my head. And it was kind of like when I was starting out and I was in that time. It's so funny. I was like reading old emails with a client the other day and I was like signing off as like best regards and like hello, hope today is going well for you. Like just shit that I would never say now. Like I'm like, hey, like XOXO, like all of that. I'm just like, that's who I am. I use way too many exclamation points, like whatever. But anyway, so I was doing this like, I don't know, right when I started, a few months after I started. And I actually had pulled up the Voxer app and I like recorded a voice memo that was like a caption idea I had. And then I wrote it out and I was like, this sounds so much better than like sitting there and forcing like a caption because it's how I speak. It was like the way that I would talk to a friend, just like you said. And so it was really cool to be able to just like do that. So I actually started doing that, I don't know, like for a few months after that, just to kind of be able to make things sound more personal and like actually, tell a story and have these ideas that didn't just feel like I was forcing it or getting writer's block when it came to writing Instagram captioners or anything like that. So I love that you're like, go through your text messages, like how do you actually speak? Because it's truly that easy, but it can be so hard, like you said, when you're so close to it.
Right. And I tell people all the time too, like what you are doing, to just record what it is you're trying to say, even get it transcribed and then go in and make tweaks. It doesn't have to be as difficult as anything more than that. You can just get the way you're speaking transcribed, make a few updates, put a bullet point in here or there, and you're Gucci.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love it. And so I also just, on talking about like, talking how you actually speak and talking like you would with a friend. I know so many people, including myself, like, especially when starting out, we are people pleasers through and through in this space, right? Like we want everyone to like us, which will never happen, but we do want that. And we want to like really make sure that we're not offending anybody and like, almost treading lightly because we're nervous and we don't want to upset anybody or hurt any feelings or ever have our business, which is so close to us and our hearts, like ever be portrayed in a way that feels, wrong. And so talk to me about like getting over that resistance. Like I know that you even, drop the F-bomb all the time. You say things like, hey, this is like who I am, like whatever. Like how did you get the confidence to do that? And have you ever, gotten like any negative feedback from that? And how do you take that when you do?
Oh, 100. I've gotten negative feedback from that, but like I've gotten 1 million times more positive feedback from that. That makes it feel so much better. But it's funny how I kind of got into my own brand voice. This is like embarrassing, but I try to tell this to as many people as possible now because I'm like, it's how it works. I would like go into Later. That was the like scheduling platform I would use. And I would type out my captions as I would want to type them out, like as whatever I had to say. And then I would go back in and like put in a picture and update the copy so that it sounded better or like just more professional. And one time I forgot, I did all the steps except go in and edit it to make it more professional. And it posted, and of course there was the F word in it somewhere, probably multiple times, let's be real. And some rando ass man commented and was like, oh, you sure don't care about turning people off on your brand, do you? You use them. And I'm like, oh my God. have I not been doing this for this one man? Like, I don't care what this man needs. He is not my ideal audience. If I've been sitting here like holding myself back while, you know, this one man is getting what he wants and everybody else who's actually in my ideal audience keeps reaching out and being like, yes, like this makes sense. I agree with this and whatever. Like, I've been doing it wrong. And I've definitely had people since make comments just about how they like can't even, I did a training in a Facebook group for someone once or a summit or something. And someone's like, I can't even listen to this. Her mouth is so foul. And I'm like, that's okay, Barbara. I would not listen to me either. It is A-okay.
Right. No, and I think that's honestly like the best way to approach things. And I am always telling people, and I teach this in my course, and you know, I'm always saying it, but I'm like, you have to just like remove those things like from like being taken personal. You know, like when it comes to business, like and as you grow, you have to treat your business like as a business. And obviously, you know, like it's a reflection of you, but like you're going to get those comments regardless. So like who cares, you know, basically, which is obviously easier said than done, especially for the people pleasing people of the world. But I love that you're just like, yeah, whatever. Like there are going to be those people, if they approach you or not, when they say it, they might unfollow you. But at the end of the day, it's like you said, like for every one person that gets offended, there are 99 people who feel connected to you, right, and you're, you know, furthering your relationship and connection with them. And so that's really what matters at the end of the day.
And I also like, I probably still am like, not a people pleaser as much as well, maybe this is what people pleaser means, but like my feelings get hurt if someone doesn't like me. If like someone, I don't know, I'm very much like that. I'm sensitive in real life and not as much online, I guess, anymore, but I was when I started. And this is still something that I've been able to get to this place where it's like, I see a comment, I hear something, and I'm like, oh, that sucks that they're not as fun as me and can't take my brand voice. Right. It's fine. Like, it used to be something that like stung a little bit. And now it's like, you know what? Like you said, you're just, for every one person that has a problem with it, there's like 10 who are just obsessed with you even more.
Yes. And so when it goes back to, you know, like you said, starting early and all of the things, and for anyone else just who's at a place where they may be trying to like, you know, really start to infuse their personality and everything in their copy, like what is something you wish you could go back and tell yourself? Something you wish you had known when it comes to like copy, storytelling, your brand voice, all of those things early
I would say just to fucking go for it, because half-assing with your copy and your brand voice and who you are online just does not work. And there are so many of us online. There are so many copywriters, so many designers, so many of all of us. It takes a lot to stand out, and you can have the fucking coolest offer, but someone's going to come in with a similar offer that's going to be $5 less or whatever. Like, you can play that game all day, but when you come out as yourself and you're like, you know, full on, stop playing by the rules, and you're embrace your full brand identity to the max, like that's when people start to pick you out of the crowd and start to, you know, recognize you. You have that recognizable brand voice, signature voice and signature vibe. And people are like, I don't care if she charges a little bit more, like this is the bitch I have to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think that's, I love that you said that, because I feel like there's just so much, like, again, there's so much noise, right? And it's like, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. And I always tell people the same thing. I'm like, there are no rules in business. Like, you truly do get to create like your own rules. And if that is, you know, like swearing in your copy, if that's who you are, then do it. Like that, it's so important to actually be able to show up in the way that you actually are, because if not, there's going to be a disconnection on your sales calls. There's going to be that, like, right, if you meet people in real life, it's going to seem so like it's never going to be a front that you can keep up with forever, you know, like if you are creating a personal brand, because it's literally who you are. And so instead of trying to like hide that, embrace it. And it's so funny because I think now, especially, that a lot of people are starting to kind of like own that a little more, I think. And I've seen a lot of brands like almost rebrand and be more like eccentric or be more like sexy and just like be more, you know, real to themselves online. And it's been really interesting to watch, because I feel like people are becoming a little more like unapologetic in the space, because they're like, whatever, like this is, like you said, there's so many things out there and this is who I actually am. And these are the things that are actually important to me. And I feel like that's just a really cool thing to see in this like online space is everyone's like trying to no longer be like, I need to get all of my photo shoots done in blazers and I need to do this. People are like, no, this is like how I dress, what I wear. I'm going to wear that. I'm going to drink if I'm drinking. Like, I'm not going to worry about all of that little stuff that like we used to be so worried about,
100%. I even I get tested with this weekly. I swear to God, my mom will she's, I don't know if she signed up for my newsletters or how she got on my email list. I don't have the time to think about sitting in and going and pulling her off, but she'll respond to emails or she'll text me and she'll be like, hi, Mackenzie, I hope you're doing well. I see that you've used the F word in this message on this day with this email. And I'm thinking if you remove it, you would get a lot more sales. And I'm like, okay, thank you, Mom. Do you have a business? No. Okay, thank you. We'll keep in mind. Bye-bye.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I feel like, yeah, that's just like the old ways of doing business. It's so funny, just like how things have changed and like people's perceptions, but it really does just like further that connection. Like especially now that even TikTok's a thing and I like see my clients like personal TikToks and how they are, I'm like, I love it because I'm like, this is who you really are. Like, or their personal Instagrams. I'm like, this is like you without any expectations. And I feel like that's just such a beautiful way to be able to like, implement that into your business too. And you're always going to be able to like, you're always going to turn people off, no matter if you are super professional and stuffy or if you are like super eccentric and out there, like there are always going to be people that are not your people and that's okay. So as just a final thing to kind of like wrap it up, just what are some overall, like takeaways, tips, anything else that you could recommend if there is anything on just really being able to kind of like own who you are and infuse that in your copy?
Yeah. And I know this is hard to hear for some people because it definitely was for me when I got into the online space. Like I said, I'm a people pleaser sometimes and I don't like being disliked. But if nobody hates you, that's when you're doing it wrong. If nobody's like disliking your shit, if nobody's making snarky remarks or comments, whether it's like directly to you or like if every single person is obsessed with you, something is going wrong because people are not, how do I want to say this? People are either all okay with you or there are like some that dislike you and some that are obsessed with you. Not everybody is going to be obsessed with you. And that's what we're looking for because that's what changes lives and gets us sales and gets us connections, real deep, authentic, lifelong connections between our perfect people and our brand. And I just say, fucking go for it.
Yeah. And it's kind of like that quote. I mean, I'm definitely going to butcher this when I say it, but it's like, like if you try to like please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody. And I mean, like, obviously, we've all heard that, but it really is so true. Like if you try to be the person for everybody, like nobody can do that. And I even made a post the other day and it was like, you can be the juiciest peach in the world, but like there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like peaches. And that's so true. Like it's for any business. It's for, any restaurant, any service provider, any shop. Like there are always going to be people who have something negative to say. And that's part of being a business owner and just kind of like realizing that at the end of the day, again, they're not your people. And there's actually a dessert bar where I live and it's really cool. It's like right downtown and they have a big flag poster canvas thing above their kitchen. And it says something with like a cuss word on it. I think it's like sometimes shit happens or something like that. And it's really funny. And it's like something you definitely see when you walk in. And there have been like, people that I've heard just be like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that I have that hanging up. But then people like me, I'm like, this place is so cool. I love this. Like they're not just a boring place who's like following the rules. Like they're doing something different. I feel like they have a fun, quirky personality. Like I get so much more than that. And just like you said, like I'm someone who like becomes almost an advocate for them and becomes obsessed with them because I feel like I trust them and I connect with them instead of just having something that like, again, attracts nobody that way. And that's not how you create a brand,
100%. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Well, I love it. And so tell everyone just where they can find you online, what you have going on, all of the things.
Yeah, so come hang out with me on Instagram. I always call it Instaham, and then I'm like, nobody knows your little jokes, Mackenzie. At Mackenzie B. Fleming, and check out the link in my bio for a whole bunch of goodies. But if you want An exclusive freebie, I have a sales page audit kit that I would love to give you guys if you just find me on Instagram and you want to DM me, audit kit or something along those lines, and I'll send it to you. And then I'm also always hanging out in my Facebook group, which you can find through the link in my bio on Instagram. It's the Conversion Corner for Coaches and Consultants. And that's where all my live trainings and all the fun shit goes down. So I would love to hang out. Definitely DM me once you've either followed or joined or whatever, and let me know that you're here and where you came from.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This is so good. I'm so excited and so thankful that you came on, took the time to do this. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how people are able to kind of like take these tips and, start being more of themselves and showing more of themselves online.
For sure. Well, thank you for having me.
All right, guys, that is it for today's episode of the Creative Minds Think Alike podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And if you'd like to continue this conversation, follow me on Instagram at karima.creative. And if you'd help spread the word and support this passion of mine, please share this podcast with your friends and leave a review on Apple Podcast. This is a way for me to give back, and your support is what allows me to continue to show up every week. So until next week.